45. Now from the 45, he strikes the Cruz 3 times. One goes in the rear window, one goes into the trunk to the right of the license plate, and the third one goes into the driver's side, or the passenger side door. There are multiple strikes on a wall, which is maybe about 10 to 15 feet from where the Cruz comes up, and that's where the intended target was. 13 minutes into processing this particular crime, the crimes that occurred in North Braddock, a call comes in and says shots are fired in East Pittsburgh. When detectives arrive, the scene is secure. The victim, Antwon Rose, had already been transported to McKeesport Hospital. It takes approximately 5 minutes to get from the site in North Braddock to the site where shots are fired in East Pittsburgh. The driver of the vehicle is in custody. The passenger with the dark T-shirt's in the wind. They have several departments that are looking for him. That person was later identified as Zaywan, I'm not pronouncing that properly, Hester. Z-A-I-J-U-A-N, Hester. He is the shooter in North Braddock. By all accounts, Mr. Rose never did anything in furtherance of any crimes in North Braddock. I know there's been some speculation in the meeting. Yesterday, or possibly the day before, Hester was apprehended by the sheriff's fugitive team. He's currently lodged at Human Center. He'll be charged with various crimes under what we refer to as Act 33 under Pennsylvania law. He'll come into the adult side of the courts. As is significant to the car, even though the car was struck 3 times, there's no blood evidence in the car. None of the passengers were struck in North Braddock. In East Pittsburgh, there are 3 spent casings that are recovered. They'll go back to a 9mm weapon. That's the weapon of Michael Rosfeld. There are 2 witnesses that are proximate to the location of the shooting. There is a video. From talking to the family this morning, we'd like to get the phone. We don't have the phone right now. We have the YouTube version of that video. It's significant because we want to enhance it a little bit more. The driver is extracted from the vehicle. He's on the ground. As the officer begins to put cuffs on him, the 2 passengers get out of the car. According to the witnesses, Rose shows his hands, turns, and runs. He is not in possession of a weapon. Neither is the other passenger in the dark T-shirt. There's another witness with a video. He's using a camera phone. The video doesn't add much to the evidence in the case. The car was processed, and they found 2 weapons in the vehicle. One is a 9mm weapon that was stolen. It's under the front seat towards the front of the car. The .40 caliber was also stolen. It goes back to 3 or 4 other crimes. It's under the front seat and towards the rear. And it is the .90 caliber weapon that was used in connection with the shooting in North Braddock. The medical examiner did the autopsy and submitted various reports. Antwon Rose was hit 3 times. He was hit in the side of the face, in the cheek. The bullet exits through the nasal cavity. He's also hit in the right elbow from the rear. That's a through and through wound. He's hit in the mid-back, and that slug was recovered in his chest. That's the fatal shot. As As I said before, that 9mm slug matches Rossfeld's service weapon. The at scene Facebook posting is consistent with the independent witnesses' statements. As I said before, there's no weapon that would have created a risk to Officer Rossfeld. Based on that evidence, I find that Rossfeld's actions were intentional, and they certainly brought about the result that he was looking to accomplish. He was not acting to prevent death or serious bodily injury. It's my position that he is not entitled to a justification charge to a jury as a defense, inasmuch as under Pennsylvania law, if you are effectuating an arrest, you have to show the person be arrested has committed a forcible felony. As I said already, Antwon Rose didn't do anything in North Braddock other than be in that vehicle. And you have to possess a weapon. Neither of those young men were in possession of a weapon. We have to otherwise indicate that somebody is in a position to take human life, and that is not the case here. Now, these are based upon jury instructions in a Superior Court case out of Philadelphia. An appeal was taken to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which was denied. Now, this is the third time that we've had this factual scenario during my tenure. The first two date to the beginning of my tenure. You're aware that I directed that one count of criminal homicide be filed in connection with this case as it was in the prior two, given the same scenarios. I credit our chiefs of police and the ladies and gentlemen of law enforcement for getting it. So, for instance, last year alone, we had 1.2 million, in excess of 1.2 million calls to law enforcement. And we looked into two matters which involved police use of deadly force. That's still too many, but just to give you the numbers. With that being said, I'll take questions.
Did you offer to retake yourself based on any conduct related to the damage?
No. It's my con.
How the driver could be?
Pardon me?
How's that the driver could be?
Jai, as best we can tell, he's like a Uber driver, jitney. He's very forthcoming. Of course, he's looking at, driving somebody to the scene of a shooting has criminal implications. So he's very forthcoming with county police.
Can you say more about the exact charges in Greenville Run then? I know there's a series of possibilities. Is that something that's going to be determined by a jury? If the charge will be narrowed, and what are the potential penalties?
The charges against the officer? One count of criminal homicide. The evidence supports third-degree murder. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Manslaughter, voluntary manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter. But we think we should have the right to argue murder in the first degree. For first degree murder, it's life. Third degree is 20 to 40 years. Manslaughter is 3.5 to 7.
Steve, break down why you think a third degree murder was
It's an intentional act, and it's done recklessly. And there is no justification for it.
Okay, Roseville, Officer Rumsfeld in the affidavit says that he believed that Antwon had a dark object in the scene. Did you dispute that, sir?
We took a statement from Rossfeld. He's on audio and video. He indicates that at no time was there a weapon in play. Yes, sir.
Did you feel pressure to charge in this case?
No, sir. I've been doing this for a long time.
The community protest, the outrage from the family, you felt no pressure at all to charge?
No, I did not. As I said, this is the third time we've had this particular fact scenario during my tenure. Charged the first two times, we're charging this time.
How would you describe the actions of Officer Rossfeld that night?
I think I just did.
Steve, did Antwon Rose fire a gun at all night?
Pardon me?
Did Antwon Rose fire a gun at all night?
No, he did not.
Are you aware of the history of this sort of incident in Officer Rossfeld's past? And what do you think you can share or you learn about the circumstances of his departure from his previous job at the University of Pittsburgh or any other?
The county police has all his personnel files. And I don't want to get into that today, but we're aware of his background.
The criminal complaint against the officer refers to his initial reference to seeing something at hand, and then he makes a different statement later. The complaint describes that inconsistency. Can you explain the differences between what he said and what he used?
Well, he specifically says that he didn't see a weapon.
It said,
That's significant.
in the statement though, he said that he believed that he saw a dark object.
Yeah, that's inconsistent with the witness statements. It's inconsistent with the YouTube video.
Does he need to see a gun or just something he believes is a
The jury instruction says there has to be a deadly weapon.
The officer also expressed that he was afraid at the time of the shooting, and so why didn't he fire at him?
I don't know that. I know he was remorseful.
Do you know if he was on the situation? Did he say the other two cases were?
Yeah, one involved a Pittsburgh police officer on 2nd Avenue, and one involved a housing authority police officer in the Armstrong tunnels. Both times, all three times, somebody was shot in the back, and they were not a threat to the police officer who was engaged in whatever aspect of their job.
Was Officer Russell on a taser as well? He had used a taser.
I can only tell you that Antwon was about 15 yards before he collapsed. So he starts on the passenger side of a relatively small vehicle, but I doubt that a taser could have been used.
Steve, can you talk about the previous shooting in North Braddock and what impact that would have had on the shooting in East Pittsburgh on Officer Roscoe when he does stop the car involved in what he suspects was involved in that shooting just 13 years later? Does he go in with apprehension then? Can you address that?
Well, I think you got to go.
The whole situation.
Sure.
Did that affect the decision to charge him or not?
I think you got to go in with apprehension. Unless you see a genuine threat, then it's inappropriate to take, in fact, criminal to take somebody's life.
And that's the reason you brought the charge.
Primarily, yes.
Was the foot chase an object? Did he say as a great evidence that he detected a foot chase?
Well, their training says you disable the vehicle first, which he did. Take the driver out, keys out, show me your hands, that type of thing. You got three guys in the car. You wait for backup. So he's taking three guys out of the car before backup gets there.
If the victims that are known that he was complaining in Roscoe, telling the version of it.
I'm sorry, I don't follow you.
There's, at the end of the criminal complaint, the detectives know that he told two different versions of that. Like inconsistencies. How they were about that.
Actually, I believe it's three. The object, the lack of a gun, then he goes back to an object in his hand. That's a jury question.
DA, what's your message to Antwon's family?
We had a very nice conversation. They're very decent people. Obviously, they're very distraught about the loss of their son, who by all indications is a good kid. I'm going to keep that private between us, but it was a good conversation.
And for the community?
You can't take somebody's life under these circumstances.
You said previously that Antwon really had an empty object.
Yes.
Do you know the genesis of that, or where that came from?
Yeah, we're speculating. The gun was stolen. The clip is what the original clip was for the 9mm. They changed that out for an extended clip. So instead of 9 shots, you have 17.
They changed it out to the other gun.
No. There's a longer clip for the 9mm. So instead of 9 shots, I think it's 17.
So are you indicating that Hester fired the shots from that gun and then switched this?
No, there's two guns in the car. There's a 40 and a 9. Both guns are stolen. The 9's under the front seat. The 9 is never discharged. The 40 is discharged, and it's from the rear seat. And you guys are going to get the video feeds from both North Braddock, and you've probably already seen the feeds on YouTube. But clearly, the person whose arm is out the window with gun extended has a black T-shirt on. And there's other evidence, too, that indicates that Hester's the shooter.
Or where did this first?
It was already in the weapon. Yes.
What for the weapon that had been replaced.
You take the clip out because it's only 9 shots. You take an extended clip and you put it in at 17. It's a trend.
So it was never discharged.
The 9mm was never discharged. That's correct.
Did you say that officers also be able to say that he feared his life would be dangerous?
I don't know if he said that in his interview or not.
Also, you stated that he got the car, that the procedure is to stop the safety vehicle. But you seem to indicate that he could have just waited for backup rather than trying to do the thing he went against the follower against.
Normally wait for backup, yes. We have multiple persons in the vehicle.
You had evidence charging what you first degree murder and then voluntary manslaughter, manslaughter, but you made a decision to go with first degree murder. Was that ultimately your decision? Can you talk about the decision with that with their charge?
Yeah, usually we charge criminal homicide, just 1 count generally. That goes back to when we had a coroner instead of a medical examiner, because we were getting pretty bad decisions out of the coroner's office.
So to clarify, we charge a general charge of homicide, which has, as Mike explained to you, the range of possibility
Yes,
from first to third.
yes.
To clarify your remarks earlier, when you said they were before a third, that that's what the position was. Why were you saying the evidence at minimum shows that you will prosecute seeking first degree?
Right now, we would ask a jury to consider all degrees of homicide.
So, narrowing it is in the hands of the jury, not, you'll leave that to the jury to become the trial.
Right. And that's why we do that, because the coroner was making the determination and not a jury.
You did say that you believe you have the right to argue for first degree.
Yes, ma'am.
Steve is arguing against Officer Ross that he was wrong.
We objected to it, yes. Well, you have an officer in the county jail otherwise. I'm not sure safety considerations, security considerations, that type of thing. We objected, and we've taken that matter under advisement. I haven't made a decision what I want to do yet.
I think this is too early to talk about lessons learned. We talk about training. Does there need to be more training? Do you have any thoughts on what needs to happen in the
Yeah. We have, in Allegheny County, we have the Allegheny County Chiefs of Police Association, which is a really progressive professional group of law enforcement members. Those guys come out with model policies. They can't obligate individual police departments to follow those policies. So in this case, yeah, I am concerned of the lack of policies and procedures in East Pittsburgh. And East Pittsburgh, by the way, is not the city of Pittsburgh. It's a separate municipality towards eastern part of the county. We have 118 police departments, some of which are run very well, some of which we have to keep an eye on all the time. But that's a creature of the legislature. If the legislature wants to do something about it, we're all here today. Let's tell them to do it.
Steve, was there gunshot residue found on Hester's hands? And was there gunshot residue found on Lewis's?
Tests are pending.
You don't know?
At this point, we do not know. Probably there is not going to be residue because the gun was far enough out the window that it wouldn't have blown back.
On Hester.
On Hester. But clearly Hester's the shooter.
Did you test Lewis too?
Yes.
Those are pending.
Those are pending.
So you don't remember in law, can you talk about the idea of an officer being felony and whether or not that can be justification for an officer shooting somebody who may have previously been involved in a potentially serious felony?
Yeah, under the arrest scenario, generally speaking, an officer has to be in fear of death or serious bodily injury. Then you can return that threat with appropriate force. If you're trying to effectuate an arrest, then what you have to show is several things. You have to show that there was a forcible felony. Okay, shooting at somebody in North Braddock could be considered a forcible felony, but it was committed by Rose. It was not committed, it was committed by Hester, not by Antwon. You also have to show that a weapon's involved, or that you are otherwise in serious, there's the possibility of serious bodily injury. Those elements clearly are not there.
Steve, talking about the gun, you said Antwon Rose did not fire a gun, but him being in the car at the drive-by shooting, does that make him a party to the crime?
No.
But the driver is a party to the crime.
The driver could be.
What is the difference there?
Well, we need him as a witness.
You know how Antwon Rose had to be in that car, or what led up to his decision to be involved in this?
We have an idea of motive, but I can't comment on motives yet.
Do you have any concern concerns, or can you talk about any concerns you have about East Pittsburgh, policy and procedures or lack of East Pittsburgh police?
Yeah, I'm going to take it up with the U.S. Attorney.
And you know for a fact that Antwon Rose didn't know I had this history, they were history, they were acquaintances. Are you clear on that?
Yes, they knew each other.
Steve, regarding those policies, are you saying that they did not have well-defined policies about how to conduct that type of stuff?
In response to questions by the major crime investigators when they first came on scene in East Pittsburgh, they said, well, how do you handle these situations? What's your policy? And they said, we don't have policies. That's a very dangerous situation.
They don't have a policy for what?
For anything, as far as we know.
Steve, do you have some attorney's office pursuing a civil rights case against Roscoe in any way?
We've been in touch with the FBI, yes.
Who's Roscoe against training?
Primarily with the University of Pittsburgh. He's 10 years with those guys. This isn't like his first stop.
Can you talk some more about the danger of not having a policy or procedures?
Somebody's dead. Dangerous situation.
Does that make Pittsburgh responsible in any way?
I'm sorry.
Does that make East Pittsburgh responsible in any way?
Criminally? No. Civilly? They got a lot of answering to do.
On the matter of not challenging, putting the properties
We objected to it. We objected to the bond that was issued.
going forward, are you likely or do you expect within the next week or so to bring that matter before Allegheny County judge?
Yeah, the way bond works in Allegheny County is initially it's a judicial function. So initially, what you do is if you hit the county jail, then you go in front of an arraigning magistrate. The intake people are there, the bail agency's there, and the public defender's office is there. We don't participate in those types of matters. By constitution, if you charge generally homicide, then you shouldn't be able to be bailed. And the magistrate set the bail at $250,000 unsecured. So that's a matter that I'll talk to Judge Manning because he hears appeals from bond issues.
Well, can you say it, just to clarify, do you intend to do that? Do you rule it out doing that?
Well, I'll talk to my team and see if that affects how we're going to try the case and make a decision.
The processing here took about an hour. I think generally it takes 8 to 10 hours for the special treatment at the jail.
No, this is being handled just like any other homicide.
Why was Pittsburgh firing in the back of the property?
We have an idea of that, but it deals with motive, and I can't comment. I'm not permitted to comment under the rules of professional conduct.
Can you talk about the protests at all? What's your reaction to what's been happening here in your county?
I'm taking care of business.
I mean, whether you feel pressured, I mean just in general, the blocking of the streets, the protests happening.
I don't know that I really do have an opinion. I mean, the people own the criminal justice system, and if they've got issues with it, I think they have the right to express that.
Do you believe it would be a test having a blanket ruling that an officer does not shoot a police suspect?
It's not a blanket ruling. As I said before, the Superior Court addressed this in the mid-90s in terms of the jury instruction. That was appealed to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which was denied. It was heard on a collateral appeal in the federal courts in Philadelphia, who upheld the Superior Court's determination.
Do you believe that should be the standard?
It is the standard.
I mean, the standard of an officer not, it's not being proper procedure in any event to shoot a police suspect.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I just told you the circumstances under which it is appropriate to use deadly force if you're effectuating an arrest.
Do you think Antwon Rose was just in all places at all times?
I really can't. I can't speak to that. I mean, he's in the car, but he didn't do anything in furtherance of, if you want to call it a conspiracy, he didn't do anything in furtherance of that.
Given the clip in his pocket that he was found shooting in front of the seat passenger, the weapon was under the seat or on the front seat, he was in possession of a stolen weapon based on that.
You can infer that, yes. There's other evidence, but that's really of no moment when we're talking about a homicide.
So it's not relevant to the officer's actions or his status, Rosen's status in that incident.
The possession of an empty clip? No, doesn't have anything to do with our thought processes.
Well, also about the complicated history with the university, but can you talk about how you got hired by the police department?
I'm not going to get into personnel issues. I mean, that may be relevant at the time of trial. Again, I'm talking to you guys from the substance of an affidavit that supports a criminal complaint. So that I'm limited to discussing the issues that are in the affidavit.
Rosen's attorney has said that there were some previous instances where Roosevelt assaulted people or acted inappropriately. I know you don't get details, but have you found any evidence of any previous misconduct?
We have his entire personnel file. Chief Loftus, who's the chief of the University of Pittsburgh Police, was formerly the chief of Miami Metro. So he knows what he's doing. And we talked to him at length.
Are you going to release the personnel file?
Pardon me?
Are you going to release the personnel file?
It's not part of the prosecution.
So without getting into specifics again, I mean, what we saw about his behavior as an officer, did that give you concern?
Yes.
Did he make false statements in substance in the garage door?
I'm not going to get into details.
Can you talk about the eyewitness accounts of him showing his hand as he ran away in one road?
We have a witness specifically who says his hands go up and he turns immediately and runs. And both witnesses that are right there. Cars parked in front of me, the next house over, and the next house over. They're witnesses.
And this is after he exits the car.
Yes. Exits, turns, books.
Here, he was showing his hands in an effort to show the officer he was running.
That's what the witnesses say. That's what the video from YouTube indicates. Now, we'd like to enhance that, but we're not at that point yet. I want to say that was 3 days ago. County Police. Or was it at the Massey's? Kent Hills Police Department. It's on audio and video. I don't know that. I can get that for you.
What did you have to weigh when you reviewed this case in your investigation, Jim? For instance, what did you have to consider, weigh, and make a decision?
Well, it's the same thing that I indicated earlier when I first came into office. Taking human life is one of the most important things in this community, dealing with those types of tragedies. You do not shoot somebody in the back if they are not a threat to you.
How long do you have to make that decision? How many seconds was it from the time you hit the vehicle over to the shot and
I don't know exactly the number of seconds, but it was very quickly.
You go back to the police training,
Yes, sir.
across the board around Allegheny County officers usually only have one time a year they do shoot, don't shoot training. You say that it should be increased.
Well, most of the guys that are in these small towns, they train at minimum standards. It's called Act 120. You have to have a refresher every year. You have to discharge, fire away. Our community. Are you from Allegheny County?
Yes.
Okay. So in the North Hills, you face a different type of threat and a different type of crime than you do in the Mon Valley, or that you may do in the periphery of the city of Pittsburgh. So yeah, the guys who handle major crimes on a regular basis, they usually use the county police. But if you're going to get in a firefight, you got to be trained properly. So it's kind of a constant battle. But as I said before, the chiefs of police in our county, they're very progressive and I think they're a great agency.
In your video of this, you had indicated a musical video, a watch video. Can you recount your video that is yet in hand, in some authorities' hand, but yet to be viewed? What video will you be able to release after this news conference today, and what do you anticipate will actually be shown at the preliminary hearing?
At that intersection in North Braddock, there are actually 3 cameras. And what we did is we had the techs at the county police put them together so you can see the car come up Baldrige, begin to turn left onto Jones. Even before they start to make the turn, the hand goes out, gun goes out the window. Shots are discharged. You can have that. That's an exhibit. You can just ask Mike. It's been redacted. The unredacted version will go into evidence at the preliminary hearing or whenever the courts first convene on this matter.
Do you know that the Antwon County training is now in county? The officers put a scenario in the past, machine, free time. Do you know if that kind of scenario or sent in the past?
I believe it is.
Okay.
I believe it is.
Do you anticipate, like, just to clarify, the plan?
Oh, I'm sorry. You asked me about the bus video. We just received video from that particular bus. A bus goes through that intersection just before shots are fired. Our buses normally have 6 cameras, so we haven't had a chance to look at that yet. But it could help us. But we know who as I said several times, we know who the shooter from the car is. We know who the guy is, the return fire on the street. We're looking for him now too.
At the preliminary hearing, do you say yet that you intend to hear the evidence at the preliminary hearing? The video interview of the officer in which he makes the statement.
No, detective would testify as to what he said in the interview.
Hey guys, we're gonna wrap this up. One more question?
Is Tester cooperating in the investigation into Austin Russell?
No, not at this point.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so almost 45 minutes there of press conferences from the family, almost 45 minutes there of press conferences from the family and DA Stephen Sapala. I want to start with, let me take you back to the family press conference. And 3 main points I want to take from that. Lee Merritt and family members were also there. Lee Merritt is the attorney. Fred Rabner, also a second attorney. So I'm just going to combine everything here. 3 main issues. 1, they are still discussing with the DA whether to send it over to the state attorney general's office or another department to handle this. The DA, Stephen Sapala, said he is open to that. 2nd, they're still trying to figure out how they feel. How do we feel? That was the question about this unsecured bond that Officer Michael Rosfeld got. The 3rd one, the DA, they say, prove to us that they have put a case together. So they say they're cautiously optimistic about where this case moves next, but they say it's a marathon and this is just the first step.
Yeah, they said they feel confident about that meeting that they had with the DA. And if you are just joining us now, we just heard from the district attorney who had a lot to say. While he couldn't give specifics, he kind of did on a lot of aspects of this case. But mainly, one of the big points he made was that Michael Rosfeld's actions were intentional. He said those words, and he said he is not entitled, the officer, to justification in the shooting. Also, it's a 3rd-degree murder case right now, which is 20 to 40 years in prison, but they believe, according to the district attorney, that they have the right to argue for 1st-degree murder. Something interesting. This morning we heard maybe conflicting reports here. Rosfeld reported that he saw something in Antwon Rose's hands. Now, just a few minutes ago, we heard the district attorney Zapala say Rosfeld indicated at no time was there a weapon in play. So something has obviously changed between this morning and where we are now.
And a reporter asked a very good question. Not sure who it was, but it's a question that a lot of people I've heard discuss. So I want to go over it. So the question was, did Officer Rosfeld need to see a gun or did he need to believe there was a gun in order to shoot Antwon Rose? And Zapala said that the jury instructions, based on what a jury is supposed to do when they take a case, it has to be a deadly weapon. So thinking it was a gun in terms of what the jury has to consider does not count.
Absolutely. Right. That was a really good point. Really good question. We want to go to some sound right now from what you just heard. And it's the DA describing what happened leading up to the shooting. Let's roll that.
13 minutes into processing this particular crime, the crimes that occurred in North Braddock, a call comes in and says shots are fired in East. When detectives arrived, the scene is secure. The victim, Antwon Rose, had already been transported to McKeesport Hospital. It takes approximately 5 minutes to get from the site in North Braddock to the site where shots are fired in East Pittsburgh. The driver of the vehicle is in custody. The passenger with the dark T-shirts in the wind. They have several departments that are looking for him. That person is later identified as Zaywan, I'm not pronouncing that properly, Hester. Zaijuan Hester. He is the shooter in North Braddock. By all accounts, Mr. Rose never did anything in furtherance of any crimes in North Braddock. I know there's been some speculation in the meeting. Yesterday, or possibly the day before, Hester was apprehended by the sheriff's fugitive team. He's currently lodged at Human Center. He'll be charged with various crimes under what we refer to as Act 33 under Pennsylvania law. He'll come into the adult side of the course.
All right, that was a little bit of District Attorney Stephen Zappala talking about what led up and how this whole crime was committed or what happened out there. And also he mentioned that the slugs that were found in Antwon Rose's body matched those of Officer Rosfeld's weapon. He also focused on the tactics of the East Pittsburgh Police Department, something that he says he was a little critical of their procedures and how they handled it. He did mention, he frankly said, you wait for backup in a situation like that. And clearly that's not what happened.
Yeah, he had to take on people as he went into the situation, thought I have to maybe possibly arrest 3 people and maybe suggesting there that he should have waited for backup. DA Zappala said that Antwon Rose got out of the car, showed his hands, turned, and then ran. That's when he was shot. As you were saying earlier, Rosfeld said he might have had a gun, I'm not sure. And then just now, Zappala said he did not see a gun at any time. So conflicting situation there from the interview that he originally gave investigators to what Stephen Zappala said there. I do want to talk about, since he mentioned it, where Antwon Rose was injured, 3 shots. Shot in the side of the face, the elbow, and the mid-back, and the bullet was found in the chest, and that was considered the fatal shot. So those are the injuries that Antwon Rose suffered as well.
Yeah, and the Attorney General, District Attorney was very clear about the fact that Antwon Rose had no weapon on him during any of this. Something we should bring up that the attorney for the family of Antwon Rose said that day, Lee Merritt mentioned that Officer Rosfeld should never have been sworn in on the day he killed Antwon Rose. And something about the bond issue, which is obviously bothersome to them and the district attorney. We have a statement, you can read that in a second, but something that stuck out, a quote from Lee Merritt says that the officer being offered the bond and being out of jail right now shows that this is a system that is bent in favor of law enforcement. So they're still very angry about that. They're trying to work their issues out, and they do have confidence in this district attorney that will happen, because they said they felt very confident after their meeting.
And Zappala did say there at the end that they are considering appealing that unsecured bond. So we're going to have to stand by and wait to see that. I want to go back to some sound now to explain exactly what the charges are that Michael Rosfeld will be facing.
The charges against the officer. 1 count of criminal homicide. The evidence supports 3rd-degree murder. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Manslaughter, voluntary manslaughter, and manslaughter. But we think we should have the right to argue murder in the 1st degree.
The district attorney going on at the end to just talk a little bit about who Antwon Rose was, and he said he had a great conversation with his family. All indications